So I'm going to start and then Tristan's going to jump in. So this is on getting organized and managing your commitments. And the reason why we say managing your commitments is because if you have too many commitments, then you don't have time to do everything. So it's kind of time management, what we're calling it commitments. So we're going to talk a little bit and share a few ideas about organizing your priorities and your time, some strategies and tools, and then, as I said, we're going to have our discussion. So this is a 4-part series. The first part we already did 2 weeks ago about knowing what your priorities are. So a really important part of managing your time and managing your commitments is to try to align your time with your priorities. And so that takes some work to figure out what's important for you to be doing, what kind of tasks you have, what kinds of things you need to do, and how to align them with the time. And so the key here is to align your time with your priorities. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of managing your time and managing your commitments. So we're assuming that you've established what your priorities are, but a few words about that. It's pretty common to get in trouble with time management and have too many commitments for your available time. There's a lot of reasons for this, including, I call it kid in the candy store. You want to do it all. I know that's my problem a lot of time when it comes to work, is that so many things sound interesting and I don't want to miss out. Which kind of relates to the second thing, which is the expectations of others, the need to please, and always being anxious about being enough, doing enough, being informed enough, making sure that you're, in the know, is another really big driver for why it's, we have too many commitments. And also just that our job or family needs are out of alignment with the amount of time. And that's a tough one because we get put into these roles where it's kind of not clear what it takes to be successful, and it just seems like you need to do everything, and then you don't have enough time to do a quality job or to enjoy the rest of your life. So those are really common kind of potholes that people get into with having too many commitments. So of course, this is a really, really quick session, but here are my favorite how to say no strategies. So eventually, if you have too much going on, you really have to get rid of some things. I like this little comic over here. My boss says I can start working from home 2 days a week, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday should not be work days. That's kind of a joke. All right. So don't think that I'm telling you at all to work on Saturdays and Sundays. But it's kind of not a joke because a lot of people do work on the weekends all the time. And that's just kind of not really okay because, there's life after work. So some of my favorite bullet points over here are to give the classic, I'm so sorry, I would love to, but I can't, or no. So you're giving people the satisfaction of letting them know that you'd like to, but that you have to. Have people protect you. I was just talking to my husband about he arranges for the studio program, the research studio program, and he, asks people to come and be on panels to review grants and ideas. And he said it's pretty common where he'll contact someone and their assistant or their helper will say, oh, don't plan on having a meeting with person X for at least a month, so they kind of protect you or from people. Sorry, my doggy's contributing. Apologize. Put on an auto office message when so you're not tempted to try to deal with things right away all the time. Require advance notice and put things off. Delegate and abdicate. So delegate means see if someone else can do a task for you, and abdicate means that you're giving somebody else the responsibility. So something that might be important, like not that interesting, important to you, might be a great opportunity for someone else. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. We get a lot of basic dissemination implementation requests that a more junior person would love to do. But for me, it's like, oh, I've another barriers and facilitators, boring, No, I don't say that. But giving that to someone else and having them actually take it over and be in charge of that is abdicating. And then really asking, does it really need to be done? Like, is this something that if I just don't do it and nobody does it, would that be okay? So anyway, just a quick refresher on kind of saying no before we get into actual time management. So here's a few, Tristen and I together came up with a few strategies and tools. And then after this, her and I are going to go through and show you what we actually do, just a way, you know, it's not like the prime example, but it is some examples for you to think about. One of the main things that I do is block time on my calendar for specific projects or tasks. I tend to do full day blocks, but blocking an hour, blocking a couple hours, blocking a half a day, whatever, and really trying to protect that time and asking those that you work with, your supervisor, your PI, your, you know, whoever you work for, to acknowledge being able to do that. Maybe you know, check your email every hour or something so that you're not taking too long to respond. But if you need time to get certain tasks done and then put on kind of an out of office, you know, message that says I'm working on this, whatever task, and do that regularly. I also use Microsoft To Do, which is kind of a list maker, and you use different categories. This helps me to stay organized and realize, you know, how much I can reasonably do in a day. Keep track of time, document on your calendar and in Excel. So I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. I don't know if any of you are getting, but we have these Office 365 My Analytics, and they give you reports on how much quiet time you have and who you're collaborating with and all this. You can utilize that to kind of analyze how you're spending your time, and if it's like what you, I mean, when I have many months in a row of 0 quiet days, it's like, well, okay, now I need to, you know, take a day off. So that can be helpful. And this Pomodoro technique, Tristen put that one in there, break tasks into 25-minute segments and work on only that for 25 minutes without break or distraction, then take a break. There's also lots of apps and websites that can help you with these things. Okay, so what I do, my time is broken up into lots of compartments. So I have, my job has this grid, and a lot of researchers and PRAs and, you know, others have a grid where the row is the project you're supposed to be working on and the column is the calendar month, and your grid adds up to a certain amount. You know, hopefully if you're full-time, it adds up to 100%, so you get 100% paycheck, but it's made up of all these different things. So I need to sign these EPERS reports that show that I actually spent that amount of time on these various funded projects. So what I do, so here's a picture of a future calendar for me. What you'll see on here is these big, I just circled that, block, do not schedule. So I've got blocks for pathway interviews, and then I've got blocks for do not schedule. And I tend to do these on Mondays and Fridays. So my Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are a lot of Zoom meetings and calls. This is like 2 or 3 weeks from now. All those other things that are color-coded are meetings that are set up already. Now you'll notice on Friday, I already have some things you know, interjected into my block do not schedule, but I approve that and allow that to happen. But you can see I've got it labeled by my various projects, but I've got time blocked that, you know, that's for me to just work on whatever I'm working on. So I use my calendar very actively to block things. And then people who work with me have access to my calendar and they can see the blocks, and then they can ask, can I use that block? You know, Tristen knows this. Tristen does this all the time with me. Then over here on the right is a completed calendar. I think this is back in October. But what you can see is all these green marks. And what the green does is, this is how I actually did spend my time. So green is independent work time for me. And then I've got it labeled by what I worked on. So at the end of the week, I can go through and I can see how much time I spent on various different activities. And so the left is a blocked in the future, and the right is, so you'll see that Monday was blocked before, but now it's filled up with a whole bunch of stuff that I did. So the other thing that I do is I use an Excel document, and I track each week how much time I'm spending on various things. So I took off, you know, over there on the left column, I've got role X, role Y, role Z. Those are 3 different roles that I have. One of them is vice chair for research. And then I've got all the grants. So at this time I had A through H grants that I was on. And then I have things that are not funded. So the green are the things that are actually funded in my job. And then the other things there in that column under allotted are not funded activities, but they're part of my job. Proposal writing, paper writing, teaching is an overload activity, email, and other. So those are other things that I do. And what I actually do is say, okay, I'm comfortable working 58 hours a week. That's a reasonable amount for me to get my job done. And I'm not saying you should work 58 hours a week, but I'm just saying for me, that's what I determine. And then I put an allotment by how much time I should be spending by those activities. Then I go through my calendar each week and I add up how much time I actually spent. And then over on the right, you can see kind of the weekly average. That particular month, I had 5 weeks in it. But the red is where I spent too much time. So I spent more than my allotted time on role X, but I spent less than my allotted time on role Y. You know, I was supposed to spend 8 hours and I only spent 4.8 that month. So it helps me to kind of see how I am distributing my time across all the various things. It also helps me to acknowledge that some of the things I need to do in my job are not funded. And so even though those, I either need to allot some time out of the other things that I am funded to do, or I need to work extra to do those things. So that's kind of the 2-part system that I use, blocking things on my calendar, then I actually track what I do, and then I add it up later. So now I'm gonna switch this over to Tristen, and she can go ahead and say what she does.
Thanks, Jodi. Now I feel a lot less busy comparing my calendar to yours here, but that's okay. I know. So my system for organizing and tracking time is really similar to Jodi's. I use a combination of the Outlook calendar blocks and an Excel spreadsheet so that I can, similarly to her, take a look at, okay, how much time am I spending across these projects? How does it compare to what I'm actually allocated to do? And do I need to talk to my PIs about adjusting some of that if those things aren't balanced out for several weeks in a row? So I also use, in addition to just blocking things out, Jodi also mentioned the Outlook to-do list. I use that to distribute my tasks throughout the week. So at the beginning of each week, I'll take a look and say, okay, here's all the things that I said I will get done this week, or that I think I need to get done this week, to give myself a little visual of how heavy my workload is for each day. And so that can give me an idea of, you know, when for me, the big issue is always I've set myself up to get more done than is really feasible. So if I have a bunch of meetings all, you know, running the whole day and a huge big list of things in my to-do list, that kind of tells me some of these things might need to be pushed later in the week to a different day. Some of these things might need to be pushed to next week. So I don't get to the end of the week and go, I've been so unproductive. Look at this big list of things that I said I would do and I didn't get done, when really I was just setting myself up for a workload that was a little bit too ambitious. And then also, if I have been pushing a given task next week, week after week, that might tell me, as Jodi was mentioning earlier, maybe that's one of those things that I need to say, this isn't going to get done, or I need to ask for some help from my team to work with me on this so that we can actually push this forward, because it's obviously not happening within the bounds of my workload right now. So also to help with work-life balance, because a lot of our priorities, you know, our priorities shouldn't only be within the realm of work. I think, you know, we should have a good work-life balance and try to balance those things out. And I know that can be really tough right now for a lot of us, because work and home are the same place. So I try to not only block time for projects, for interviews that I know need to get done, for writing, whatever, but I block time for non-work tasks really strictly. I have recurring appointments on here for exercise in the morning so that I can make sure that I get out before it gets dark. And then I go, oh, I'm not getting outside today. So, you know, and then I'm also blocking things for dissertation writing days. On Fridays, I'm working 80% FTE right now. That's what I get paid for. And so if I'm blocking off those days to make sure I'm actually spending it on my dissertation, hopefully someday I will get that done. The other thing that Jodi mentioned was the My Analytics piece that'll kind of analyze your time, take a look at, here's how quickly you responded to emails. Here's how much of your time was open. Here's how much of your time was spent collaborating with people in meetings. it has a focus time feature. So I'll send it to the chat. I'll link to the My Analytics where you can set that up. But I have, it sent me an email, it asked me if it wanted to do this, and I thought, well, why not? So I use that focus time feature at the beginning of each week. Outlook will automatically just put a few 1 to 3 hour blocks wherever it can find open time on my calendar, and it labels them focus time. I really like this because it keeps me from blocking all my time during the day on specific big tasks and then getting to 5, 6, 7 p.m. and going, oh, I have all these emails that people sent me today. I need to take care of this. I don't want to push them till tomorrow and then wake up and look at this huge list of things I need to do. So it kind of makes sure that I have a catch-all time for catching up on emails, for other tasks that arise that maybe I didn't block time for, other things that you just don't even think to specifically block out. Like Jodi was talking about, there's a lot of unfunded things that you still need to be responsible for. And so this focus time kind of helps me go, okay, I have a little bit of catch-all at the end of my day or at some point in my day so that I'm not pushing the workday too long and I'm able to get kind of those miscellaneous things taken care of, tie up some loose ends. So, okay, if we could, I think I'm done here. We can go to the next slide and let's see. Before I get into this, I just want to catch up on the chat here. Heather says, have any of you figured out a way to categorize using Outlook to auto-calculate where you spend your time based on the category? That would be an amazing feature. I have not been able to do that. I wonder if there's some sort of report you can run. Does anyone else, feel free to speak up or put it in the chat. Does anyone else have any idea if that's something that is feasible? Now I want to mess around with that and take a look if there's reports you can do, maybe of your tasks.
I think part of the, I think that with my own time, I would put DFM for family medicine time or whatever. I use standard language to categorize, but a lot of the meetings that get scheduled, I can categorize them with a category, but people might call them weird things. So I think there's got to be a way to tell the analytics program to be able to do that. But do you know, Heather?
I don't. I'm more familiar with the analytics of Epic, obviously.
Right.
And yeah, if anyone finds it, I would love to know, because I'm actually pretty good about, my calendar looks a little like yours do. And I am pretty good about putting things in categories, but then it's really annoying to have to do expense and hours reports at the end of the month. So if anyone knows a trick on how you could just get Outlook to categorize based on to calculate it based on categories, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think we should try the 4th session as kind of tips and tricks on different kinds of programs and apps and, efficiency, time savers. So let's look into that and see if we can figure out if it will do that. Everybody can kind of customize this in their own way according to, I just use green for that's my own time working. So I can tell that, that's my work time, my own independent work time. And I like it that way. But other people might want to just color code. I see Deanna is talking about color coding different activities. So maybe you would use pink for working on, she says, yellow is recruiting. So whether you're working on recruiting yourself or having a meeting on recruiting, it would still be yellow. But however you want to organize it. So Tessa has a comment. Tristen, you want to?
Sure. I like what Tessa said here about, sometimes it's hard to stitch your boundaries when someone says, hey, can we meet during this time? And you've blocked it for something. And she says what's helped her is turn off those email notifications for Outlook. Now that the envelope doesn't pop up, I don't stop what I'm doing each time an email comes through. That's a really good point, because very early in working from home, I had to turn off the little ding alerts for getting emails because I was finding the exact same thing, whether it's I'm supposed to be focusing on a specific task, whether, whatever I'm trying to concentrate on, you immediately get that alert and go, oh, I better take care of this. And for the most part, at least for me, a lot of us, you're probably not going to lose out on anything by waiting an hour or two to respond to emails. So that's a really good point, Tessa.
The other thing is when you're on Zoom and you're not on mute, the dings, like I get, Allison Kemp and I gave a presentation to endocrinology this morning and somebody had like not turned that off. And it was like, we're trying to present. It was just like, ding, 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 ding. It was like, please turn that off. So it's, you know, but maybe like some time that you're actually answering emails and you keep it on and you answer right away. But then if it's really more like if you need focus time to pay attention to a particular project or activity. Tessa, I would say like the blocks on your calendar, you're in charge of that. Like if something comes up that's really, really important, there's no other time to do it. It's perfectly fine to use that blocked time. It's not like, jail where you can't, use it for anything else. You're in charge of it. But if you start seeing that there isn't enough time for you to have focus time at some point in your week, and that always happens, then it's probably time to look at what things you're doing. And if there's a way that you can maybe reduce, kind of those no strategies that I had, because then there's too much going on. But if, you could switch your block time to another block time and that, is an even switch and that works out for you and makes it easier for somebody else, then that's fine. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, Tessa, but.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I think when it's, a meeting that has there's only this certain time that we can meet, I definitely understand scheduling during that time. I think that I do that too much though. Like at some of the meetings that I schedule during my blocked time is not necessarily priority. So I just need to feel okay about, I really need time to work in between meetings. So yeah, I think if I can think of it as, is this really a priority or could it wait until, next week and just say, I'm so sorry, I don't have that time. Yeah, I just need to.
Or I don't have that time.
Yeah. I'm not comfortable with, I am a people pleaser. So that's me. So it's just a new way of working for me. I need to get better at.
Well, it's good to be a good citizen. It's good to be responsive. It's good to be accountable, all of those things. But when you need independent work time, that's being responsible and accountable as well, because you're getting the, for me, I do a lot of writing. I write papers, I write grant proposals, I review other people's papers and grant proposals a lot. I spend time doing that. I do qualitative analysis. And those things I need to just be with myself and not be interrupted. And so I need bigger blocks of time. And I tend to do Fridays because that's the day that most other people also pick to block, and we don't have as many meetings. And so I feel like I'm getting less emails. The other thing that I've been doing, and I don't recommend this for other people, but for me, I don't have children at home, I don't have a lot of other things going on, is that I actually am probably most productive picking a weekend day. And so I will often try to switch out a weekday for a weekend day, and just have a full day where I will just work on something because there aren't all the emails coming in, and I know that I'm not holding anybody up by just taking an entire day to just work on a few papers. And then I can totally immerse myself in it and really concentrate and know that there isn't other activity going on without me. I don't necessarily, please hear me, I'm not saying you should work on weekends, but I'm just saying for me, sometimes doing those switch outs works better because I can just concentrate and focus, and it just feels like a nice luxury to just have that time, to focus on, on work, and then I can take another day that I'm, out doing something. Do you want me to go to the next one, Tristen?
Yeah, I think we've got about 5 minutes. So we're curious, what would help you manage and prioritize your time more effectively? So This could include specific resources, tools, policies, understanding from your supervisor to flex time across certain days. What do you guys think would help? Oh, yeah, Stephanie Livingston, kind of a similar thing. If you work part of Saturday or Sunday to help organize yourself for the next week, that helps. And then I'll often try, if I end up doing that, I'll try to throughout the week maybe take a longer lunch so that I'm flexing that time and not just adding it to my so that I'm working every single day. But depends on your workload.
Yeah, I mean, I like your comment there, Stephanie. I mean, I think it just depends on your own circumstances. People will often ask me like, well, you had 3 children, like, how did you do this? You know, and frankly, I didn't work as much as I do now. I'll be really blunt about that. I was really, really careful about my time and how much I worked. I still worked full time, but I was just really careful about being closer to the under 50 hours a week than I am now. And that is my choice because I don't have a lot of other demands from family or other issues going on in my life. And I want to do this. I'm toward the end of my career and there's lots of things I want to see happen. So I'm okay with it. But I think that, you know, different points in life, you have different priorities and different things that you need to be doing. And also, if you're working all the time, you're not recharging, you know, you're not, you know, enjoying your family and your other parts of your life, and then you're going to get burned out. So you got to kind of over time keep an eye on that, no matter what stage of life you're in. Any other thoughts about how to manage and prioritize your time more effectively? I hope you weren't looking to us to have all the magic answers. Okay, Vivian, thank you.
Yeah, and just building off of what Vivian said about kind of flexibility and schedules, I just find that varies so much across folks with research roles versus clinical roles, and depending on who your supervisor is and what teams you're working with, because we have all of these different practice transformation, dissemination, implementation, research, you know, practice-based research. We have all these different groups that you could be working with, and it really depends on how much leeway those groups might give you to have flexibility in your schedule.
Yeah, Vivian, in terms of clinical schedules, and we didn't get into that too much, but you know, those are harder to turn around on a dime, for sure, because patients are planning to see you. So, you know, that is harder, but hopefully eventually, like if you need a shift in your schedule, that is possible. I know some people have actually changed the clinics they work for, you know, and in circumstances where they needed a different accommodation. So I encourage you to, you know, open the conversation with whoever you work with to see if that's possible.
Any other suggestions or needs that people have to manage time a little bit better?
I have a question. So if the supervisors and I have a different schedule, like for example, one of my supervisors follow like really early morning. She starts from 6 a.m. and she will send email at 6 a.m. where I like to start like 9, 8:30, 9-ish, but then she would always obviously expect me to kind of respond immediately. We did have that conversation in past. So how do I make sure that, I mean, without sounding rude or something, how do I have that communication, kind of reminding her that we decided that I have a different schedule compared to her, and so I might be late in responding to her, and And I'm not sure like what's the appropriate way to address that.
You want me to, Tristen, you want to?
I figured you as a supervisor might have a lot of insight on this.
Well, work relationships are relationships. And so relationships take work and they take communication and mutual respect and goal setting, you know, in terms of, you know, working that out. There's no set answer. Ultimately, if, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately, you know, an ideal solution to something like that is that you can work together to identify when a response is a reasonable amount of time to get a response back, you know, and when you're each working so that you know, like, you know, you start to panic when you don't hear from someone for 3 hours. And I just give Russ a hard time because he sent me something over the weekend and, you know, wanted a response right away. And I'm like, it's a holiday weekend. And besides, it's Valentine's Day and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of gave him a hard time. So sometimes, you know, you just need to kind of push back. I normally work on weekends, so that was not really a problem, but I had to give him a hard time. But ultimately, you know, I think if that is not a good, like many relationships, if you just can't kind of get it together, then one or the other party, maybe this isn't the best, you know, relationship to be in, and you need to work with a different, you or that person needs to work with a different team if it just doesn't align, you know. There's not a like set easy answer to that one, Anara. I mean, I think ultimately you have to work it out, or if it doesn't work out, then you know, another team is probably more appropriate. I don't know. Sometimes you have to bend to accommodate those people who pay your salary. I do that too. So, you know, that's unfortunate, but we're all in a kind of pecking order, and sometimes that's the way it goes. But I like the idea better of people working it out together. Hey, I'm noticing we're over time. So thank you for joining us. So we'll end, but feel free to contact any of us and keep sharing your good ideas. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.